Hi, welcome back to Three Ball Walk Baseball Show. We're happy to have you back. My name's Eddie, one of our hosts.
I'm Bob.
And I'm Julio, and it's good. We're on show number 3, and starting a little tradition here on Three Ball Walk, and hopefully we'll be doing it every other week, and it's bringing in a local expert on some area, whether it be professional baseball, high school baseball, or college baseball. And today, I guess we're starting right at the bare roots, at the very beginning. Youth baseball, moving on to travel, moving on to high school and stuff like that. And we're welcome to have Landon Sapp, who, besides playing high school ball, college ball, I guess is as good as you, and I don't want to sound as good as you were. I think the legacy you leave behind is your 2 sons, and bringing them up in baseball and making them, quite bluntly, better ball players than you ever dreamed of being. And one of them is 6 years old, and the other one's a sophomore in high school. And I want to ask, and I guess where we can start, Landon. Well, first of all, welcome.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. I appreciate you guys having me and hosting me, and excited to be here. So thank you.
And I want to say, and there's a lot of people out there that, my kid's the next Ken Griffey Jr. And what is that something you bring into him? Is that something you develop? And what do you see in kids when they first start out that says that kid's going to be a good ball player?
Yeah, well, I think if you have a Ken Griffey Jr. on your hands, you know that pretty quickly, right away. But in terms of developing young talent, youth athletes, whether it's baseball or other sports, I think that the foundation is most important, and that starts at an extremely early age. Understanding how to communicate to kids in youth sports in a positive environment, in a structured environment. And helping them develop at a young age, and making sure that they establish that foundation that they can build on as they progress.
And one of the things you did, and I'll pass it on to Eddie, and one other question. One of the things I think from playing the Little League, playing the Babe Ruth and everything like that, you eventually make that decision. I think my son needs to move on to the travel. How does that affect the Little League, the Babe Ruths? And because when we were kids, that's what it was, and that's where you learned. And now I'm looking at those youth programs, and the talent's not there, and a lot of the talent is leaving. Where do you how tough a decision was that with your first son, obviously, to do something?
Sure. It's interesting because baseball's evolved like a lot of other things, right? Baseball has progressed and evolved, and that community, Little League, Babe Ruth, Cal Ripken is now evolved into travel academies and individual training academies within certain regions. I think that you gotta have something that's special. You have to have a special group of kids, and if you're able to find that, develop that, and you want to branch out into that experience, that travel environment, that competitive environment. I think it's a positive step, because that's definitely where the game is going and where youth sports are headed.
So along that line, Landon, what do you think are you're a coach of a travel ball team, or more than one team? How many teams?
Yeah, so I got started in that familiar community Little League that you're talking about, and then eventually made a step and started a travel ball team and carried that team probably for 4 or 5 years. We had an opportunity to win several state titles. We had an opportunity to win a national title. We traveled to New York, played in Cooperstown, played in Omaha, and watched the Florida Gators at the College World Series. So that was pretty neat experience. But now now that I've kind of handed off my older son and he's in high school, he plays and travel outside of high school, so he balances both with the travel academy and playing high school sports. And now I'm kind of starting that process over again with my youngest son, which is really neat. So,
If one of our viewers was asking, what's the advantage of playing on a travel ball team?
I think right now the platform and the exposure. I think parents and families they want to experience that at a young age, right? So they jump in at 7, 8, or 9, and they start that travel experience. But really, it's built for showcasing and leveraging the opportunity to play in front of multiple colleges, multiple scouts, if you have that desire to compete and play at the next level.
I know that your son James is a starting shortstop at Buchholz, and like Julio Sandani, who starting pitching for Gainesville High School. I went to a game not too long ago, and there was one scout there who was had the gun on a pitcher. When you go to a travel league, or of course they're all over, the scouts must magnify intensely.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's the way that the game has evolved and technology has evolved. I mean, the platform is there for these young athletes to experience, not having one coach scouting them at a game, but having 15 schools there to watch them either pitch or hit. So I can tell you firsthand, there's weeks at a time during the summer that these kids go and play these tournaments where they've got 20, 25 schools that are sitting in the stands watching, taking notes.
And then how does that affect, let's say, a stage parent? I mean, being a coach, is it hard for you to have to deal with people like that who maybe aren't putting their kids first, but are putting their dreams first?
Yeah, I think it comes with the territory, right? That's just part of the coaching and nature of the beast. So you got to strike that balance. You got to try to find that right environment for that particular player and that particular family that makes sense, and obviously put the team first.
Your team, and you're wearing the jersey, the Gainesville Ghosts, which started as basically a local travel team from some kids that played together at Santa Fe, and you started picking up kids here and there, and those kids now, I guess you started coaching them in the travel circuit, 9 years old, 10, 11, 12. By the time they were 12, like you said, playing for some national championships, different things like that, just a local team. Those kids now are sophomores and juniors in high school, and not to boost you up, but it's something you deserve, and it's something developing those kids at that young age is the reason I want to say Gainesville Ghost kids. There's 2 that have made commitments to play in the SEC at South Carolina. There's 1 committed to North Florida. There's a couple others already getting college commitments from. Could you see that at the age of 12, or what? Hey, that kid's a travel. That kid's going to be a college player. That kid, or do some fall off the wayside? How do you did you see that?
For me, it was special in that I happened to be around a great group of players that were extremely talented, and that doesn't always happen, right? There was a lot of kids that had a lot of talent in one place, and I think that's why we were so successful as a team. But at the age of 12, 13, 14, you can start to see some separation with how kids are developing, what athletic talents they're kind of growing into. Each player and kid is different, but that 12 to 14 range is when kids start to separate out, and you can see who has the real chance of playing at that next level.
They found in youth hockey in Canada that kids who were born in the last 3 months of an age cycle tend to make it to the NHL more often, more frequently than those kids who were born in the first 3 months of an age cycle. So what's the age cycle for baseball for travel teams? How do you make those divisions, and do you see that where a kid born in the last 3 months before it switches over has a better chance to develop than a kid who's the day after the line hits, he's 12, if 12 is a limit. June the 1st, he turns 12 on June the 1st, that he has a harder time competing.
Right, yeah, so I think that it's becoming more and more prevalent in baseball as well. I think families are making decisions at a very early age. When should we start our kid in school, right? At what age should we start our kid in school, specifically for boys, since they do develop at a later age, right? Mm-hmm. That they start them a little bit later so they can be at the top of that curve as opposed to starting them early and kind of being at the bottom of that curve. So, but I've read that article, and it's referenced in a book that I've read. It's interesting. It's an interesting article.
Mm-hmm. And one of the things too, and I think looking back, and my son played on that team that you coached, and I remember being in Omaha for a week and a half playing a tournament, and the cutoff day in baseball is May 1st. It's how old you are on April 30th, and the tournament was in June, and we had about 4 or 5 kids on the team had birthdays during that 2 weeks. So these were basically at the time, 13-year-old kids playing in a 12-year-old league because their birthday, well, during the season they were 12, but their birthday, and that's why the majority of those kids should be sophomores now, but there's 3 or 4 that are juniors because they were a year older per se, and those are the ones that are getting the big
Right.
Right. Our time's pushing a lot faster than we think. So what are there any disadvantages that you see from playing travel ball for kids and or families?
I don't think there's disadvantages as long as you keep a good balance, right? I mean, everything's become so specialized. Baseball's become a year-round sport. It's become a year-round business, really. So you got
in Florida. What about the person in
Minnesota.
Minnesota.
Well, I think, from a training perspective, right? I mean, if you're looking to compete at that elite level, that whether the weather is a factor or not, I mean, the training is so specialized, it's year-round.
But they have travel teams. They have travel teams in Minnesota. I know a guy who coaches a travel team in Minnesota.
Right.
And so they do the same thing. They pick up players and they go.
And also, how many on your son's travel team? How many of the kids? It's a Florida team. How many are from out of state?
Oh, they're from around the country.
And they'll fly in for the tournaments.
So how much does it cost an average family to participate in travel baseball?
Well, it's hard to put an exact figure on it. I can tell you that it's an expensive sport to play, but there's good resources and good sponsors if you know the right people and have the right resources in place that you can help promote you through.
What's a ballpark that a family says, hey, I've got a kid that's 13, I want to get him in a travel team. What can they reasonably expect to pay just to the team to play? And who pays for that?
On a local level, I would ballpark say $300 a month to be a part of an academy or a travel team. On a much larger national scale, I would say it's probably closer to $2,000 to sign up to be a part of an academy like that, and then you got to build in your airfare, your travel expenses, hotels,
And is the responsibility for the parent player for that, not the team when they're traveling to all those places?
That is correct. The responsibility falls on the parent player.
So how much do you think pressure falls on the player when mom and dad are footing the bill for something like that, to play, to do well, or we're not going to keep contributing to this idea? It's got to be tough on the kid if he's not a starter, I would think.
It can be intense. It can be intense, and again, you got to make sure that the right motives are in place because that happens, right? You can see the family that's truly trying to drive, their son or daughter to an elite status, and maybe that's just not the right fit. So,
because I know in basketball, when I've coached basketball in the past, and that's before when I was talking about a stage parent, there was no money involved. You signed up for it. You signed up for it, and we coached Little League. When you're talking about traveling to Omaha or New York, I mean that's not free, and it's got to be an intense pressure on everybody concerned, I would think, and especially the coach, because you have to listen to it all.
Well, again, if we're talking about developing kids and developing youth talent, the right way, then some of that pressure is taken off, right? If it's win at all costs, then that's gonna happen. And there's some teams that are out there that are like that, but not all travel teams.
And I think one of the things, and we can move up and start wrapping up this segment right here, and move into the next one, is the balance between travel and high school. Now your kid's old enough to play high school. What takes priority? And I'm seeing, obviously there's more scouts, we've already mentioned, at a big travel tournament than a high school tournament. Where does high school baseball fit into the development?
Hey, we're going to have to hold that thought for the first part of the next segment because we've got to go. We're at the end of this segment for 15 minutes. Hey, thanks for joining us at 3 Ball Walk Baseball Show. You'll find the email at the bottom of this video. You can email us your questions, your comments, shows you'd like to see in the future. Thanks for joining us for this segment. Don't miss the second segment. We're going to pick right back up with our guest, Landon, who's one of the travel baseball coaches in the Gainesville area and can answer some more questions about how travel baseball affects high school baseball and how your kid can be involved. Remember, play ball.
Play ball.